I'm doing a show, honey. I'm just letting you know. Don't cuss. With Shannon about these children.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Now, Daddy didn't like trouble when he came along. Everyone that knew him knew which side that he'd be on. He never was a hero or the townie shining light, but you could always find him standing up for what he thought was right. He'd say, you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string. Never compromise what's right and uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Now we might have been better off or on the bigger house if Daddy'd done more giving in or a little more backing down. But we always had plenty just to live in his advice. Whatever you do today, you'll have to sleep with the night. He'd say you've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string. But never compromise what's right and uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. I know that things are different than they were in Daddy's day, but I still believe what makes a man really hasn't changed. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to be your own man, not a puppet on a string. Never compromise what's right and uphold your family name. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. You've got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Greetings, listeners. I hope everyone can hear me because I've been signed out from Blog Talk for some reason on my desktop, so I'm now going to my laptop. So if you're there, Shannon, because I can't see my switchboard, I'm getting on right now. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, or I brought in a guest, Shannon Baskin from Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia. Shannon has several sons and daughters, and Shannon had signed a joint custody under duress, basically. And some people sign them because they want to be fair and, share parenting. What happens is we bring in the latest, greatest court system that's went through many, many reforms. And in doing so, the children Their custody, their best interest is taken over by the various entities in the family court. There's a show called Divorce Corp, C-O-R-P, that a young man wrote a documentary about that I absolutely love. However, there's some Guardian Ad Litem issues going on here, and these children, if you think about it, since the beginning of time, or since there's been, when people are selling other people, they go in and they sell cargo. They sell when they sold slaves. It's kind of the same concept. It's never changed, because if I give birth to a son or a daughter, that is my property. That's the flesh of my flesh. And back before the Constitution, that was actually the men got the property. So when you go into these Supreme Courts, sometimes you got to make sure that there's enough of a public outcry, or for the public good, that they don't just go back through the Constitution under the patronage, that they say, hey, we got a real problem here, and what needs to be done to help it. So I am in now. I'm hoping that I am in. Thank you. Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. You live and learn. And it's not letting me on for some reason. Okay, and I'm going to have to get in here to start the show. Let me try it again. Okay, so the patronage system is where the paternity comes in, the father's side of it. So they're going in under an old patronage system when you go to the United States Supreme Court, unless someone would be smart enough to bring up other issues and bring them in. And there is a case, Atkins versus Atkins, that I understand that's going on with. And those folks, they have the right intentions all the way. So I'm fairly happy about that. And they're actually talking about people writing in about a friend of the court, basically an amicus curiae. So that's available. A template's available on the internet. So anyway, getting back to Shannon Baskin and her sons and daughters, she went into court to get the joint custody she originally signed and agreed to with her ex-boyfriend, and that the biological father of two of the sons, but not of her daughter. Her daughter is with another father, and he did not give custody up. So this is kind of like the breakdown of the family. And the way she was treated in there, and one of the things I'm doing tonight is I'm doing a YouTube recording. I'm recording all of this so I can show the articles that I speak about. So what I'm going to do right now is bring in Shannon and let her introduce herself.
Can you hear me, Carol?
Yes, I can. Could you hear me throughout all of that routine?
Yeah, I could hear you the whole thing.
Okay, so you go ahead and
the whole way through.
Tell them your name and tell them what county you live in. I'm going to go get some chargers to hook up to this laptop. I'm on the laptop now because my desktop just signed out of nowhere. I don't know where it went. I wasn't able to control anything. So you go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
My name is Shannon Baskin. I actually live in Columbia County, which is a county over from Richmond County, but I've been going to court in Richmond County for some strange reason. The judges over Richmond County, Columbia County, and Burke County, where I live. So I'm guessing that's the reason why I go to a Richmond County court, but because he's over the three counties. But back in 2007, I was pregnant with my third child, which is my second son, by my ex-boyfriend, and under duress because he threatened me several times that if I didn't sign these papers that he was basically going to end my life. I signed them, and when I got them back, I had given custody of my daughter to him. When I signed these papers, I didn't know what I was signing. I didn't have money for a lawyer, didn't think about having a lawyer. I thought I was doing what was in the best interest of my children. And the next thing I know, I'm giving up custody of my son and my daughter to him. And Judge Roper told me in a courtroom one time that those papers were not legal. He knew that when he signed them, and he knew they would come back and bite him one day. But he signed them anyway. So when I went to take it back to court this past, it was in 2013.
Yes.
No, yeah, 2014. 2014, sorry, I get the years mixed up. 2014, I took it back and stayed in court. The Guardian Ad Litems drug it out for so long, for a year.
Who is the Guardian Ad Litems, Shannon?
Angel Kendrick.
Thank you.
Which many people are having issues with her.
I'm going to talk about her a bit myself. I have some articles about the Guardian Ad Litem issues.
Yeah.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I still owe her $1,600 and I can't pay her. She's still asking for the
Well, I would ask that you don't, I don't think that you owe her.
No, she had no recommendation at the final hearing on where the children should go.
Okay.
But the judge made the recommendation. He made the decision to take not just my two boys, but my daughter too.
Right.
I was not proven unfit. I took a hair follicle test, a urine test. I passed everything, me and my husband. We both had to pay for drug tests.
Right.
And they didn't touch our 3-year-old son, but they took my first 3 kids.
Okay. And they wanted to touch, that's my belief, and because I'm going to say this, Shannon's not, she's not going to say this, I'm going to say this. You can say it if you want to, but I would prefer you to let me say it because I'm not a party in the case, and I want to be able to say my thoughts on this completely, and that's because there's a patronage issue. The youngest son that you have has been legitimized.
Yes.
Okay.
And his birth certificate is pink and blue.
Okay.
Which is different from my other children's birth certificate.
Okay. Yeah, and there's a Nalita did a show on that, but yes. Yep.
Mhm.
So I wanted to go into this. Angel Kendricks is involved, and tell me who else are the main Judge David Roper, who has very many.
Roper.
Yeah, there's several different names that I've seen his cases under. And then there is the Brandon Lee Dial is Gary Hale's attorney, Brandon Dial. Mm-hmm. And then there is Angel Kendrick. Was there who is the attorney on the case right now?
I don't have one.
But who was the attorney that was in the news article?
Shannon Briley.
Shannon Denise Briley?
Briley.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an article up here. Local woman filing suit against judge. Now, Fox News locally reported this, and they got more into it, but I just wanted to stop right there and get the players established. Were there any other participants in the original action besides, of course, the minor sons and daughters who, one of them in particular, they continually misspelled their names? Were there any other participants? What about your husband, your present husband?
My present husband came to my first court hearing, and he was asked how many days he been back in my home, because with the custody battle, it put a lot of strain on us. And I said a few days, and he said Monday. Or he said a few days, and I said Monday. I don't remember which one it went, but a few days from Monday was Friday when we went to court. So, or Thursday. I can't remember if it was Thursday or Friday, but a few days from Thursday or Friday is Monday. And at the end of the court hearing, the judge said he's going to set an example for the courtroom, and that my husband committed perjury because he said a few days and I said Monday. So he locked my husband up for 15 days in the Columbia County Jail. And he didn't lock them up. I mean, we was in a Richmond County courthouse, okay? He's like, I'm not going to lock you up today because then I have to have this cop transfer you to Columbia County, and he'd have to stay overtime because it was like 5 o'clock and they changed shifts at 6. So we had to wait that whole weekend. I had to take my husband and drop him off at the jail for 15 days because he was the only one working. And the judge knew that, so he was the only one able to continue to pay for a lawyer. And
what was the charge that he put him under?
Perjury.
Okay, based on
Just
vagueness.
One statement.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, that's very interesting to me because, and there'll be some folks listening to this. So this is why this is interesting to me because I have access to some things that nobody gave me. I went and got them. So I'm looking at the transcripts. I'm looking at various items that I worked under a federal attorney for many years. Anyway, I'm looking at these transcripts, and I'm looking at the docket. I'm looking at the various news articles because the news media has picked up on this, and thank goodness. But I'm looking at all of this, and I noticed that Shannon did make a statement of a particular day, and her husband made a very vague statement. The interesting thing is that people may not realize this, is that Shannon Baskin's birth certificate at that time was not legitimized either by the father. So
Nope.
I suspect that Judge Roper or one of the court staff entered into the case behind the scenes and actually had taken away your capacity. Well, your capacity would already be gone because of the fact you didn't know at the time that when you enter an attorney, they don't always have I've seen it myself, so I'm making this statement that they don't always have your best interest at heart because when these sons and daughters, they are cargo. The court treats them in one respect as property. So they actually exchange them through a 1031 exchange or something like that. That's where the money comes into the picture. And what I mean by this is the Guardian Ad Litems that are appointed in these family court cases, and I've seen judges talk about this. It's on a recording, folks. Under Carol Keene, YouTube, Public Official and Judicial Corruption, our local folks here in Wayne County, before I discovered this fraud, the local news station had broadcast a 2012 budget council meeting county council meeting for the year 2013, and they gave damning admissions. They said that the Guardian Ad Litems, they budgeted for their salaries. And that means the court pays.
They're getting paid by the courts, and they're getting paid by the parents.
Yeah, well, this is where the markup.
That what you're saying?
Yeah, this is where the markup comes in. So the courts are paying them. In addition to that, they then charge after they automatically insert a Guardian Ad Litem.
Fees.
Then they charge the parents, and the parents are to pay that. Then the Guardian Ad Litem, in this case, here in this county, returns 60% of whatever they were able to get the parents to pay, and the parents, without realizing it, had no idea. So then they return that to the court, in addition to receiving the automatic salary. And in this case,
no wonder they'll lock parents up who don't pay.
Well, this is how the Guardian Ad Litems enter into a relationship. Not only that, the juvenile court system, if they get their names, like if somebody gets their child involved in, and they're automatically a juvenile when they're involved, but if let's say their child gets, and I don't want to talk about specifics too much about this, Shannon, but let's say their child gets in trouble and the police are called in for anything, and that child gets taken away for even a minute, or gets in trouble and has to visit the probation officer, well, then the counties are sharing funds from the state that do not have to be tracked. They're just given they're given money based on the amount of juveniles in the system, and those amount of juveniles is based on I'm quoting, after you boil away the fat. They're giving us money based on a bizarre system. And we don't have to track, and now I'm not quoting, we don't have to track those, And then there's further admission that the state and county's numbering system and numbers do not match up, and the expenditure dollars are not being tracked properly. And folks, expenditure dollars are taxes. So there is a school to prison pipeline in addition to this operating, and they're taking
So it's like kids for cash.
Yes, or custody, kids custody for cash.
For custody, yeah.
Right. And there are some attorneys
Whoever the highest bidder is.
Well, or whoever.
I mean, really, whoever pays the most.
Well, I don't know about that, because it's kind of hard. I think it's almost like the states are taking it back to the fathers think they're winning, but they don't understand the mother and the father. I don't think they're understanding with the changing legal landscape what's occurring here. You're actually going in and agreeing to let them be the mediators. Now, if they're not going to mediate fairly, and the fathers and the mothers, whoever gets custody, thinks they won, they really didn't win, because when going through that forum, they gave up the original
They're right.
hierarchy custody to a court.
Yep.
And they're still sitting in the background waiting on something to happen, and they'll snatch him away from the father and the mother, whoever, because I'm not.
Yes.
Right.
Well, my ex still talks to the guardian, and my case is final.
Uh-huh.
My case is done. He's still running up a bill calling her.
Okay.
Why he's still calling her, I have no idea.
Well, he may not have an idea.
Kids to another state.
Yeah. Yep. And that was probably something he may have gotten some advice on, because once they're there 6 months, then it may be a grounds for change of venue. You brought that up before, and that would be something that that somebody should have answered for you. And it's also something you don't want to sit on. You want to be able to move forward. But if you have ineffective legal counsel, and I'm not putting words in your mouth or anything, I'm saying, I'm just giving a for instance out there. If you have ineffective legal counsel, or someone who will refuse to change the misspelling of the names, and you might want to look at the fact that, why are they ignoring my instructions to them? Because I paid for and even if I didn't pay, they're representing me, supposedly, or my child. And what role are they playing in this system now?
Well, you know, Brandon K. Dial, is it K?
Yes.
Is it K?
I think so.
Okay. Brandon Dial, he dropped Gary as a client. Okay, only for Gary to go back in there and retain him, pay him a few more $1,000 to hire him back on the case again. And that's what I think was going on with mine, because she said, if you want to rehire me, I'll take a $3,000 retainer.
Okay.
And I'm like, no. So,
well, you can't afford it, but let's talk about this.
I don't have that.
Right, let's talk about this.
So,
has she withdrawn from your case?
No.
Okay. Then let's just leave.
But for 6 months, she says that she's going to.
Right, she's threatening. And I'm saying that, you're not. So I'm just saying she's still on your case, so it's not too late for her to do the right thing.
Exactly.
Okay. So this, you went out because of this happening. You went, because I've read everything. You went out and you started counseling with a young man at your local church. And what was that young man's name? The man who came in to be a witness?
Oh, Ron Burton?
Yes, Mr. Ron Burton. Yeah, he testified, and he did a great.
Yeah, he did a great job, and Judge David Roper was going to lock him up too.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't like the fact that him and my husband, Ron Burton being, I don't think he liked the fact that Ron was they're both men. My husband's a white male, and Ron Burton's a black male. I don't think he liked the fact that a black male and a white male both stood on the stand and said that the reason why things shouldn't have went forward the way it did with Gary Hill getting custody of my children was because he beat me while I was pregnant, was charged, convicted, and confessed to it. So,
yes, he said. I saw that as well. He admitted that he admitted that he was guilty of that. He pled out.
Yes. Yeah. No.
And I want to bring up something else. I want to bring up something else with you. When this first, and I showed you this, I went in and looked up the docket where the clerk entered information into the docket, and the clerk's office is ran by Cindy Mason, who actually came in and filed an affidavit because some things were occurring internally. So anyway, I looked at this docket, and I looked under David Roper, and he handled your divorce case. It's showing as he handled you and Mike, or you and your present husband were divorced at one point, and he was under that case, listed twice under one case. And then not only that, under the original,
Danny Craig was the one who signed off on it.
Okay, and then under the original, Danny Craig was supposed to show up and he wasn't. Judge Roper was. And then the original joint custody and the pleading out, I want to ask you this. Under the original domestic violence and the joint custody, who was the judge over the domestic violence?
Judge Duncan Will, which he's not a judge anymore, but Danny Craig was district attorney at the time, and he signed off on the warrant to arrest Gary in the beginning.
Okay, and then
so Danny Craig was the district attorney, and then he turned around and did my divorce with Mike.
Okay.
I think that's a conflict of interest.
Well, Judge Roper's showing up as doing your divorce under Mike twice. So he is showing up. That's a fact. He's showing up under that divorce with your present husband now because they remarried. So let's talk about this. When you did the joint custody, who originally signed off on that joint custody?
David Roper.
Okay. So then you go in to revoke the joint custody, and David Roper is automatically assigned?
No, she filed a motion to recuse himself, and he would not recuse himself.
Who is she?
Case. My attorney, Shannon Denise Briley.
Okay, and I read
a motion to recuse, and he wouldn't.
And I read that. And it was a good one. He did not recuse himself. You're correct. Now let's talk about how
which threw up red flags. Anytime you ask for a judge to recuse himself and he won't, that's red flags everywhere.
Yeah.
To me.
Right. No, you're right.
Because to me, I feel like, somebody didn't want me on their case, I'd get off.
Well, they have a
Just
duty.
Like my first attorney, I had Alex Brown, and me and Ron Burton went into his office one day, and we asked him to take Angel Kendrick off of my case. And his exact words were to me and Ron were, I'll drop you before I'll drop Angel Kendrick. And he did. A couple weeks later, he dropped me as his client.
So that leads you to believe that your first attorney had a say-so in having Angel assigned to the case.
Yes. Oh, well, I knew I was in trouble when we went to our first court hearing, and that's when they assigned a Guardian Ad Litems. He said he was going to ask for Angel Kendrick. I didn't know nothing about the Guardian Ad Litems or anything.
Right.
Well, he asked the judge, he said, the judge says, well, Alex, who are you going to pick for the Guardian? And Alex Brown said, Angel Kendrick. And then Brandon Dow, the opposing attorney, says, I was going to pick Angel Kendrick. And then Roper said, I was going to say the same thing. And I said, oh, crap, I'm in trouble. When my attorney agrees with the other attorney and the judge, I knew right then and there I was in trouble. I broke down crying.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel it in my gut. This was not going to go good.
Right.
No. Anybody with a lick of common sense would know that.
Correct. Well, you don't, when you're brought in like that and there's an actual on the record agreement between the prosecutor basically, and who you think is representing you, and the judge, there's an agreement of that nature, and it's unanimous. That's like,
You know that they're all in cahoots together.
well, there's only.
I've got proof that they were meeting behind my back. My attorney, Alice Brown, Brandon Dahl, and Angel Kendrick with Gary Hill, they all were meeting behind my back. It's on the bill from Angel Kendrick.
Did your attorney at that time tell you?
No.
Okay.
I got a phone call from his secretary, and she's like, Miss Baskin, the meeting for today at 10 o'clock is canceled. And I said, what meeting? She said, you, Alice Brown, Angel Kendrick, Brandon Dahl, and Gary. And I said, we didn't schedule no meeting. And next thing I know, I get a text from Angel saying she's in a meeting. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's my meeting she's in. And then a few weeks later, when I get a bill, I see on there where she met with them.
What was the time on that? Do you recall? The time frame, like, was it an hour? Huh?
I don't know how long they met. I have to look back on the bill, but they all met without me there.
Send that bill to me, would you please?
I will.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's good proof. So when you first went in, you wanted to change or amend the joint custody that you had signed because you had 2 sons by this man, and then you had your daughter. So you wanted to amend, and it wasn't enforced because he didn't come around, and so it was a couple of years. How many years was it approximately? I think it was 6 to 7 years, wasn't it, that you had joint custody, and it was not really the way it was on paper.
It was like 6 or 7 years. That was the paperwork was that way, but I think like 3 or 4 years my daughter wouldn't go with him.
Okay.
Because a surgeon and a nurse both had told my daughter that the reason why her face had went paralyzed twice was because of the trauma that Mr. Hill caused when he slammed my daughter's face in a bedroom door accidentally. And that she possibly would need surgery to fix the nerves in her face because 70% of the nerves on the left side of her face were damaged.
So was it reportedly accidentally, or do you feel that it wasn't accidentally?
No, he had slammed not one door, not 2 doors, but the third door he slammed is what caught my daughter's face. So he has an anger management problem. And for me, that's not. You don't need to be around children. Period.
Right.
If you got a problem managing your anger, you shouldn't be allowed around children. You shouldn't be allowed around children when you beat a pregnant woman. Sorry.
What? No, you don't have to be sorry. So after that, she quit visiting him, and then you wanted to get you wanted to get some things revoked, and now
I wanted it on paper. I wanted it where he could never get her back, because the school had let him get my other son. Said, well, we got these papers and blah, 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 and the school was complying with the papers. And I was trying to tell the school what was really going on, and they weren't listening to me. They said, well, we got to comply with the paper or we risk a lawsuit. So they were trying to comply with, the 2007 order when I had, child support orders that said that I was the primary custodial parent of all the kids.
And that brings up another issue, and I'm not going to bring up much on the topic, but very quickly I want to go into this, that I happen to know based on the testimony that I've seen that's on recordings here in Wayne County, Indiana, that they actually receive federal grants based on their residency, and the child support prosecuting attorney, that they get thousands and thousands of dollars a month for one child. So what in the world are the courts going in and enforcing child support for? And I'm not taking up for males or females here. I'm just stating the facts, folks. Those are the facts. Whether we like it or not, I'm telling you They already get federal grants to where that shouldn't even be an issue. You shouldn't even be brought into that forum if they were releasing those funds as they were meant to be released. Now I'm going to go into what was it that he said that the courts are saying that Mr. Hale owed? What was the amount?
12. I think it was close to $13,000.
Okay. And whenever
it was close to $13,000.
Okay, so the judge.
And, the other thing I wanted to tell you was that news article. There was a news article that Judge. When I filed for that lawsuit, I had Judge David Roper served on a Tuesday. No, I had him served on a Wednesday, I think it was. By Friday, I was in the newspaper. Where Judge Roper had told the whole public everything he put in that final order before he even docketed into the court system. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that news article came out on the 24th of April. My final order was not docketed into the court system until April the 28th. So I was getting phone calls from people saying the news article says you're getting 1 week every other week in the summer with the kids. And you don't have to pay child support until 2018 because he owed you $13,000 and he zeroed out Gary's child support. And I'm like, where did you get all this information from? Because I don't know anything that's in my final order. So here is a whole public knowing my business before I did.
Well, let's talk about this.
And then he threw an 11-year gag order on me.
Let's talk about this because I want to go chronologically for the listeners. That you went in to get the original joint custody that you signed under duress revoked for various reasons that you've already given. And you went in 2014 and you went before him with an attorney, an attorney named, again, the name?
I went with them with Alex Brown.
Okay, so
first hearing. After that, I was dropped.
Okay, so Alex Brown and you went in.
I was pro se for like 7 or 8 months before I hired Shannon Denise Briley. She only went to 2 of my court hearings. It was 1, and then it was the final one.
Okay.
So she was only there for 2, and then I went to the rest of them by myself before her.
Okay. You went there for her by yourself?
No, I went by myself before I hired her. I was pro se.
Now, did she offer to do it pro bono?
Yes, she offered it in the courtroom. She told the judge that they could drag it out as long as they wanted to, but she was doing my case pro bono.
Okay. All right, your case pro bono.
Yep.
So I want to go into you had several. Did you have any hearings where you were by yourself? Because I've seen evidence that you did a very good job and you were alone.
Yeah. The one that you got transcripts for, I was alone. I had to question all my witnesses. I think I held it together pretty well, considering that my husband was sentenced to jail, in that hearing. And about, I want to say 5 or 6 hearings after that, I kept getting dragged in court over and over and over and over and over again for nothing. Like, the Guardian, she called an emergency hearing for nothing.
What did she say?
She had emergency status hearing and still had no recommendation on where the children should go. So why did they call a hearing? I have no idea. The only thing I could think of was to add more money because she was getting paid like $250 per court hearing.
I'm looking right now, and I'm recording this. I'm looking at 3/14 of 2014, a clerk's note, faxed automatic domestic standing order to Judge Roper. And on 3/14, a domestic relations case filing. And then on 3/14, the petition for modification of custody with verification and attachment. And then there was a summons, so that's your side of it. Then on 3/17, there was a automatic domestic standing order and notice of conference or hearing. And I know they've corrected these records because later on in this case, listeners, and this is going to be on YouTube, later on in this case, Cindy Mason entered in with an affidavit, and so did Judge Roper, where he held her in contempt. Cindy Mason was the clerk. He was accusing her of not filing things properly, yet she first accused him of holding on to the documents, especially in this case, up in his office, which is not customary. So you almost have a situation of, if you look at it in a different way, of a mother on one side getting upset because the father's getting more time with the children, and a father on one side saying, I deserve the time with the children because the records aren't in one locale. So there's been corrections to what I'm showing you here, but I just want to show folks how to get there. And then another thing is, there were things said at the, you went down through this and it was pretty drug out. And the very end, right before, when Mike, your husband, present husband, was arrested and lodged for 15 days for perjury and not taken right away because somebody didn't want to work overtime. When that happened, isn't it true that there were some news reporters there or made aware of this, and they wanted the transcripts, the audio recording, but that they would not give them up?
Yes.
And is that the reason?
They actually brought their attorneys in front of Roper in November and asked him in a court setting to give up the audio, and he still wouldn't give up the audio because they believe the audio does not match the transcripts, and that is exactly the truth.
Okay. And can you tell who exactly those folks were? Did they do a separate court case on top of your court case?
No, I don't believe so, because Roper wouldn't let anybody mention. He says, we're not mentioning the plaintiff and the defendant's name in this courtroom. So it was a entirely different case where he was just, the reporter Nick Lully from Fox 64.
Yeah, I cannot find the face.
He was. I'll have to send you the video. I'll have to dig for it. You have to dig for.
I have it. I have that.
Stuff.
I have that.
Oh,
but
you do?
Yeah, but what I'm asking you is, when Nick Lully, the reporter, came in and he was reporting on this, and he was trying, and there were attorneys hired. It was a pretty big deal. It had to do with freedom of speech and various other and access to public
process.
So I saw some interviews on that. Right. So they came in November of 2014 or 2015.
This was 2014.
Okay. And he wouldn't give up the audio.
Nope. Which was clear that, that things were being covered up and changed.
Well, even the Supreme Court.
And that's exactly what Nick Lully's, their reporters from the station, their attorneys from the station had said, your constitutional rights trump, the public's right to know trumps anything that they think might be constitutional, because the public has the right to know what's going on in these courtrooms, and they're not being informed. So we know the dirt's being swept under the rug.
Right.
A blind man can see that.
Right. And
so the audio's never been given up.
Okay. So, and then now my next question. My next question is, Nick Lully is a reporter. What news station was it exactly that did that?
Fox 54, the same one that ultimately, took my story.
Let me go ahead and play that real quick so everybody can hear it. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
I hope it plays for me.
Welcome back, everybody. An Augusta woman is filing complaints against a local judge after she says he broke the law multiple times while handling her custody case.
We've been following the stories on the family court system in the Augusta Judicial Court Circuit area for more than a year, and now another woman has come forward alleging corruption in the system. Katie Solt joins us now. Katie, you sat down with the mother. Why has she filed the complaints?
Dawn and Wendy, I spoke with Shannon Baskin and her lawyer, and they both say there are several instances of an abuse of power when handling the custody case. But the biggest flaw of all to Baskin is that Judge Roper awarded custody of her daughter to an ex-boyfriend who had no biological or legal ties to the child, and she wants to know why.
What matters is what is right and what is wrong, what is just and what is unjust. And what is just is to have my daughter be with me.
Gary Hale has never been a stepfather to her. He's never been an adopted father, and he's not her biological father. They have no legal relationship whatsoever.
A child taken from her mother and placed with a man she barely knows. A ruling that Shannon Baskin and her attorney are still trying to wrap their heads around. Judge Roper was the presiding judge in Shannon Baskin's custody battle, and Baskin's attorney says in the final months of the case, there were flagrant violations of the law when Judge Roper was on the stand. In a complaint filed with the Judicial Qualification Committee, Briley states that Judge Roper would not release audio from a temporary hearing from July 2014 where the transcripts did not match what actually happened in the courtroom.
He's sitting here saying, okay, you have a concern that the audio or the transcripts might be altered. Well, you'd want to exonerate yourself. You'd want to give exculpatory, say, oh, sure, here you go. Maybe there was a mistake. We're not expecting him to be perfect.
Another example Briley cites in her complaint is, quote, the court goes on to advocate for the defendant, making excuses for his domestic violence conviction.
Judge Roper comes in, the interim order, playing defense attorney regarding the proceedings that happened in 2007 during Mr. Hale's plea hearing. The fact that Judge Roper is coming in and playing defense attorney and justifying that, no excuse for it, none.
In the interim order, Judge Roper states, quote, Baskins claims to be the victim of long-term domestic violence at the hands of Hale. There is no evidence of this contention except one incident in 2007 when Baskin was pregnant with William. Hale was arrested for family violence battery. Hale entered a no-low plea to a reduced charge of battery and was sentenced as a first offender. Judge Roper goes on to say, quote, the court finds that Hale was most likely acting in self-defense, but in anger handled Baskin roughly. These photos are of the bruises Baskin suffered to her back in the incident Roper found to be a self-defense situation. The final order granted Hale custody of the 3 children, including Baskin's biological daughter, citing Hale as the father.
Roper names Gary Hale all through it as her father. I thought father meant biological. I thought father meant stepfather. I thought father meant an adoptive parent, not an ex-boyfriend.
Also in the final order, a gag order issued by Judge Roper for all parties, preventing all parties from talking about the case for 11 years, specifically on the formed suspicion that Roper altered transcripts. The gag order says, quote, plaintiff, defendant, and their attorneys are hereby restrained and enjoined from putting, placing, or causing to be placed any allegation that any transcript in this case has been altered upon or in any social media, website, or other public medium, or speaking or corresponding with any print, radio, television media about any such allegation. Briley has challenged the gag order in federal court and filed the petition on April 20th. Before the custody was granted, Hale owed Baskin a total of $12,299.37, an amount that, according to Judge Roper, Hale no longer had to pay to Baskin after he was granted custody. In May 2015, Baskin and her attorney filed an appeal of the permanent injunction with the Supreme Court of Georgia, and they also appealed the custodial issues to the Court of Appeals. And as Baskin waits for an answer, all she wants now is justice.
When you're a mother and your very best that you could do as a human being is not good enough, It'll break you to your core. This is bigger than just Shannon Renee Baskin. It is bigger than my children and my family. This is for all families who have gone through it before me and who are to go through it while I'm going through it and who is to come.
To see if he would respond to these allegations, he simply said, quote, "I cannot talk about an open custody case," and hung up the phone. I also reached out to Hale, and he told me he wasn't able to talk about the case at this time due to the gag order issued by Judge Roper. We will continue to follow this story for updates, and for more stories on the Augusta family court system, head over to WFXG.com and click under the news section. Back to you.
That was very good, Shannon. You did a great job.
We couldn't hear it. I couldn't hear anything.
Oh, I wonder if anybody
know.
heard it. They'll hear
No, I
that.
couldn't hear anything.
Okay, well, they will hear it on the recording. So I apologize for the dead space, folks. If there's dead space on Blog Talk, they will hear it on the recording.
Yeah.
I hope everything's hooked up right. If it's not on Blog Talk, we'll I'll re-record and knock out the silent section if that's the case. I'm trying to record the 2 sessions at one time, one for YouTube and one for this, and I could hear it just fine, and I know that on YouTube it went in just fine, but you may not have been able to hear it, so I apologize about that. Okay, I wanted to show the docket to the folks here. I'm looking at the docket, and it ends up, notice of docketing, supplemental order on 12/14/2015. And that is the fact that it's being appealed, I believe, to the Supreme Court of Georgia. Is that correct?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes, it's being appealed.
Well, on 12/14
in the Supreme Court of Georgia.
On 12/14, 12/1 is when there was something sent into the Supreme Court of Georgia. On 12/14/2015, there's a notice of docketing supplemental order.
What's that mean?
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to call up and talk to the clerks up there. I think Tiffany's one of the girls' names, but I'll call up there and ask her tomorrow because that's the first I've seen of that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so now here's another, here's a couple of things that I want to talk about. The oldest daughter did not have a relationship of any kind for many years with the Gary Hale, who the judge kept calling father, correct?
Yeah, and what's crazy is every time I was pregnant with his children, he left.
Right.
He didn't want me to have the baby, so he wasn't there while I was pregnant with his own children, and so he wasn't there for that time frame for Angelina. And, that whole time frame that Angelina didn't want to go over there because she was scared and she knew what the doctors had said. I mean, they're not going to say it behind her back. They, talked about it openly. And it was documented by the doctors,
right,
by DFACS and by the police, And so for, the court to just say, oh, you got to go be with this man now.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's stop and talk about this part, because we need to. It's very important when any parent goes into court and they know that they're a fit parent. Any parent goes into that court and they know they're a fit parent and they're playing these games. Let's talk about the fact that it is my belief and understanding that he made some totally inappropriate comments to you as if you were an adulteress. And basically,
yep.
So can you go into, because there's many parents out there that these judges are actually giving their moral judgment upon folks based on an outdated system, and they're speculating and they're testifying from the bench when they give legal advice or say this or that. Because many parents feel like this. They feel as if they've done something wrong. No, many times I don't think the parents have done a thing wrong. They just didn't know not to go to this basic family court, divorce court, and I am going to say this, there are some instances where the children could be in danger, especially in today's society, but what I've seen in the little pool that I have, that I've actually looked at the cases, and I've only actually looked at 3 of them to date because it's overwhelming and I lose sleep. But let me tell you, all 3 of those cases, those parents did not deserve to lose custody, and nothing was mentioned about their best interest, the children's best interest, nothing at all.
Never was it interest. Never did he say the words best interest of the children. Never. Never did he say that.
So what kind of things did he say to you? Give me some, and it doesn't have to be a quote.
He called me a liar.
Okay.
He called me a liar. He said I was the most vindictive person he ever met in his life. He called me names. Basically, he said I didn't deserve to have my kids because I had all of them out of wedlock.
Did he refer to an A on your chest and walking you through the town square?
No, but I felt like that.
Okay.
I felt like if we were back in the 1800s, my head would have been chopped off. I mean, I just felt like we were back in a time where, you know, oh my God, she's having a baby out of wedlock. Like, really? When? I mean, we're not in that time frame anymore. You know what I'm saying?
But there is a place. There's a place where that time frame exists, and it exists under the.
Oh yeah, in other countries.
Well, no, there's a place in our legal system where they go back 200 plus years, and they basically rely on the old laws, and then they may or may not update them. But there is a place where those laws still exist, and in their virtual world.
It was okay for Gary Hill to have kids out of wedlock. I mean, I didn't have these kids out of wedlock by myself.
Right.
I had these kids with Gary. 2 of them with Gary. Then he had another child with another woman, and now he's married to a different woman.
Well, let me explain this.
So,
if
I mean,
well, listen just a moment. If illegitimate children didn't have the right to inherit anything until the 70s. So if you're going into a system where they have the mother sign her maiden name, even if she's married, and they don't show the father's name properly, then that child is basically bastardized due to that certificate. Now, so then you have these estates that are setting these you can't inherit. So if that person's mother passes away, or father in real life, if they pass, then if they were illegitimate before that time, then who would collect their inheritance? Well, if there weren't any heirs, then the state would. Am I correct there, do you think?
Exactly.
Okay.
You're exactly right. The state will collect it.
Okay, so let me tell you that I have absolute proof about the birth certificates being used. So this isn't I've seen all of the documents out. Well, yeah, I've seen documents out there.
People don't believe you.
Well, it doesn't matter if they do or not, because I know it.
When I try to explain it to people, they don't believe it. They don't want to believe it because it sounds so unbelievable. But if you know, I've had, you know, my 5 friends, they have been hearing me talk about this case for years. They didn't believe what was going on until they were sitting in that courtroom. And you know, you could tell people all day long, but until they see it with their own 2 eyes, a lot of them won't believe it's really happening.
Well, there is proof out there that it's really happening, and it's not.
I wanted to put out there too. Fox 54 called me for my story. The news station did. They called me for my story. I didn't call them. They wanted my story. Well, we didn't just go and do the story and then it was on the air the next day. They had to wait 3 weeks for their attorneys to go over everything and make sure I was not lying about anything. They dug and dug and dug, and the reporter called me back and said, you know, we could put it on the air because what you said was 100%. There was nothing that we found that was false on your part at all. So they had to make sure every I was dotted and every T was crossed before they put it on the air.
And
so
bravo,
thought, you know,
bravo.
for those who thought that I just went on the news and it was, done the next day, it wasn't like that. They had to wait, and they had to make sure everything was, what I said it was.
Well, I found it interesting that Judge
And-
Roper was questioning you about the or he was questioning the religious man that came in. What was his name again?
Ron Burton.
Yeah, somebody was, if it might have been Brandon K. Dial, that was questioning him as to why you folks were even meeting with the news people, and what were you meeting about, and why were you meeting, and was that before they did the story or after?
Yes, it was before. And see, when the media got involved, that's when I started getting dragged into court over and over and over again. And actually, two times I was dragged in court for 2 different GoFundMe videos I made. I didn't mention nobody's name. I didn't do anything wrong. My lawyer said it was completely legal once she saw it. Once I hired her, I said, was this wrong for me to do this? And she saw the videos, and she said, no, that was perfectly legal. Well, I got dragged into court, and he played that video, and I was crying in the video, and it was very emotional for me. And to have he got the Guardian up there and told her to play the video for the whole courtroom to hear. And the next thing I know, after she played the video, Judge Roper says, I'm giving full custody of the minor child, my baby son, by Mr. Hale. I'm giving that child, and I'd had custody of him for 7 years.
Well, let's talk about real quickly the fact
father.
That's the child that when you were pregnant, he beat you.
Yes.
Okay.
So he just ripped him away. I said, wait a minute, you're going to give my child over to somebody who beat me while I was pregnant with him? And he never gave me a reason why he took him.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say it's pretty obvious he was mad.
On a piece of paper. Huh?
He was mad because you had put out anything about the case.
Oh, he said, when you said the court system did this to me, you're talking about me. He said, so I take that personally. No, you took that the way you wanted to take it. That's not the way I said it. I didn't say Judge David Roper. I said the court system. I felt the court system had railroaded me.
And the court system is corrupt. The court system is corrupt. It has been corrupted.
It is.
So the court system.
Nothing I said in that video that was false.
And you did I saw the GoFundMes. The GoFundMes were for you to hire a defense attorney because you thought you were going to go in and get everything amended. It wasn't going to be a problem. And basically everything was hijacked by Judge Roper and the various attorneys who in agreement put this Guardian Ad Litem, say her name, Angel Kendrick, onto the case. And Angel Kendrick has been investigated, and there's news media out there about Angel Kendrick. And who was the judge or the Guardian Ad Litem or judge that had to step down due to questionable text messages there in your county?
Doug Nelson.
Okay.
Oh man, we don't even know where he is, but he was he actually had sex with one woman in exchange to give her custody of her child, and that woman was growing pot in the baby's bedroom, marijuana in the baby's bedroom.
Well, let's talk about this. I know of a judge in Utah who used to be a judge, and he was disbarred, and that's pretty hard to do because they self-regulate their own. However, he then became a mediator in an exchange of property between New York and Utah. He became a mediator, and there is proof that he was mediating behind this parent's back without this parent's knowledge, and that daughter was taken and leased out from New York to Utah in an exchange that was totally illegal, and that is going to be handled. And so are the issues with you, because I have people that will help me. And if anybody can help out there, help with this situation. And I'm talking about helping those children those sons and daughters
children.
get back to where they need to
Back to
be,
where they're, yep.
then go for
This
it,
is
because
about all children.
this will be they're taking our futures and they're betting on them, and the futures are our children. So, or our sons and daughters. That's the futures that they bet upon their lives with when they're taking the energy that those small men and women, when they're born into this country, they assign the birth certificate for an infant. And they, when it, for the child first comes out, or the son or the daughter, they say, what is it? Okay, so then they put paper upon it, much like back in the Dred Scott case, where, and they talked about this, how they attached traveling papers. They needed a record. They've been keeping records for a long time, but this energy that is ours is not for sale. And I'm telling you that if anybody if there's a moral conscience out there, or any kind of a conscience towards what's going to happen in the futures, this system has to be corrected and slowed down. And it's possible, but it's not possible if everybody's scared to talk about it. I'm not a party in any case, so I can, and as far as I know,
I'm not scared anymore.
I know that.
That 11-year gag order, you know, it says I'm not supposed to talk about my case. You can't do that to somebody. The case is over with. It is final. You know, when O.J. Simpson was on trial, you know, you know, he was on trial for murder, and the judge put a gag order on everybody. Nobody could talk about the case while it was going on. But once that verdict was handed down, not guilty, man, everybody was going out writing about it, making money off of it, the media and everything.
Hold on a minute.
And that was a murder case.
They were taping it while it was going on.
See, and that right there was not even right.
Well, if there was a gag order on it, then what was the news media in there doing, taping it or being involved at all? I want you to think about this for a minute.
They shouldn't have been, because the judge allowed it. The judge has to sign off on the media to be in there.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Yes.
But
yes.
Having the media in there was making money. You know? So
yeah.
If it goes in the judge's best interest, of course he's going to allow the media in there. If he don't want the media in there and he's doing dirt, he's not going to allow the media in there. That's why I could never have the media come. Because they don't want their dirt exposed.
Well, there's media involved anyway, because there was a god named media, and the media is involved in the transcript process itself. And Bill and I from Goldie Moore put me in touch with him, but Bill was on the third show that I did. It's under Death of the Justice System. There's 3 parts so far. Bill talked about the transcripts, and I understand the moving media because I used to be into photography in various forms, even though you can't tell, but I'm kind of behind times. But if they got a transcription machine that's going 90 miles an hour and the recorders there doing their job, and you got news media there, they're going to marry all that together behind the scenes, because all of the media, and it's actually on audio tapes, it gets fed up to the United States Supreme Court, where, by the way, folks, the oral arguments are available for free to all. So it all goes into one place in this country. It all ends up feeding up through the various channels. And there are audio recordings or discs or language that goes along together. And what they're doing is, in the O.J. Simpson case, the man, Johnny Cochran, knew to get the transcripts before he left that courtroom, because he knew they would alter them.
Yep.
And
wow.
altering actually means more than just alter. If you think about alter in the language system, okay, what did they sacrifice at the altar? What are
wow.
What's Judge Roper talking about when he puts a gag order on and says that nobody will nobody will make any accusations that anything was altered or whatever. He used the word alter. So there's wordsmithing going on here.
Huh. Wow.
And I'm going to talk about Cindy Mason rather quickly here, because she did go up against this judge for whatever reason. She was fighting with him over this particular case. Because, can you go into a little bit about what your understanding of that was?
Judge Roper sent her an email. Judge David Roper sent Cindy Mason an email saying that she had until a few days to correct the docket in my case, which he was trying to get her to change the date to the day before, on April the 23rd, before the news article came out, instead of the 28th. He wanted her back it up to the 23rd, and he was trying to say she made an error when it was really him that put it in there after he let the news know everything in my case. So he knew he was in trouble, and he said he wanted her to fix it before it went up to the Supreme Court, and it better be fixed, or he was sending a citation out for her arrest. And he did. He actually did send a citation out for her arrest, because she wouldn't change what he did was
And
wrong.
she has not.
And
She has not. I'm looking at it now. She did not change it. And let's go back. Go ahead and keep talking, because I'm showing folks on the video the recording, this
she
case.
She wouldn't change the date, and that pissed him off. So,
Okay. And well, because of this, because he put a gag order out on that date, 4/28 or 4/27, the final order. Is that right? He put a gag order, included that into the brief or the order, correct?
yeah, on the 28th, he put in the gag order with the final order. It's attached to it on the 28th. But the news article was put out on the 24th, and it said about the gag order. So he let everybody in the public know that I was to shut up. Basically, somebody asked me what was the definition of a gag order, and I said, is that a shut up and sit down order? And my lawyer said, yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Well, let me explain.
And I was joking because, basically it is. You're told to be quiet, and I'm not supposed to talk about this case till my 7-year-old is 18 years old.
Well,
that's not going to happen.
Well, let me talk a little bit about this. So he, in effect, put out a newspaper article trying to, and he did a gag order saying none of the parties were to talk about this publicly, but he put it out, and he was a party to it, and he acted like a party to it, and he questioned from the bench, he judged you, and he even, in one of his orders against Shannon Briley, and I'm going to say this because she did a good job on many of her briefs, he blashed out at her like nobody's business, and the whole thing was, these young attorneys want to come in here and try to say this, this, and this, so let me teach her a lesson.
He's trying to teach her a lesson.
That has nothing to do, that's not unbiased, and that's not his, right. He's supposed to judge in an unbiased fashion and be there basically as a facilitator, so he stepped out of those parameters, correct?
Exactly.
And when Cindy
Very
Cindy Mason came forward, and she is showing here that she, first of all, says that she has accused an Augusta County judge of removing, altering, or misplacing public documents, a violation of the state law, and keeping the documents in his court. Now, I know this to be true. I know that here in Indiana, several judges have been disciplined for holding the documents away from the clerk of courts, who is the keeper of the records. That's one of the roles. Now, she said she took a constitutional oath. She was voted in by the public, and she had a duty to the public. Now, when the judge took
she kept that duty.
And she what?
She kept that duty. She kept that duty. See, she was voted in. Judge David Roper could not fire her. So the only thing he could do was put her in jail with his power.
And he threatened to, correct?
Oh, he had the judge Carlisle Overstreet. He's over all the judges here. He signed a citation for her arrest, and like 10 days later, Roper took it back.
Yeah, it says right here in the
So-
article on her, Overstreet is quoting him. This is, it says, this is Judge Overstreet. I never had any problems with constitutional officers battling over the law like this, Overstreet said. It was my understanding that judges had agreements with clerks to receive copies, not originals, of case files. And if there was a hearing in which an affidavit was used to base a decision, they entered it into the record according to the letter of the law. So under Georgia law, any public officer who alters, comma, defaces or falsifies any minutes, comma, document, comma, book or proceeding belonging to the state can face a felony charge and between 2 to 10 years in prison. And District Attorney Ashley Wright said there is no current investigation, and I'm not going to go through all that, but the comments section of all of this, I'm going to go into, on June the 1st, 2015, the clerk of court, Cindy Mason, was cited. This is according to the Augusta Chronicle, which I suspect is local, and most of the time I find local newspapers that are the mainstream. They may not report everything just so. They may report it their own way. But it says he filed a contempt complaint against clerk Cindy Mason for failing to follow orders on how to file civil documents. So that whole thing was about her not wanting to backdate. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very good. Very
he
good.
wanted her to backdate to the 23rd.
Very good. And I tell you, I feel, and I'm going to state this, I feel as if she was threatened, her job was threatened, and it was put out into the public for publicity. So this is, we've got news stations involved, we've got media involved, I mean, like news stations, newspapers, and it isn't just you being interviewed. There are attorneys that are being interviewed. There are judges that have been interviewed. And if anyone wants to look these names up, because I'm going to have some callers have some questions for you, I believe. If you look up Judge David Roper, Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia, or Cindy Mason, Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia, or Guardian Ad Litems in Augusta, Richmond County, Georgia, Angel Kendrick, Brandon K. Dial, which it's available. His profile is available on the internet. Shannon Briley, who's an attorney, her profile is available on the internet. Let's see who. Nick Lawley, Fox 10 local channel, and they have a lot of reports. It's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that they only handle final decisions. Is that correct? The news.
They were doing stories, and they stopped after mine because really there were some stories that they could have did, but they chose not to because it's so controversial. So they are not doing them anymore. I think they got a lot of heat off of mine, probably from doing my story. But she said she will follow my story as it, updates.
Okay, good. Because I like that the lady that what was the young lady's name that interviewed?
Katie Salt.
Yes.
Yes, she did an awesome job. I mean, she covered everything within 5 minutes.
Good. So Cindy Mason's quoted in that Augusta Chronicle Post is, I've been filing since I was 18 for 30 plus years, Mason said. I've never had another judge ever tell me I was incorrectly filing anything, which I don't think that she was. And I think the fact that she refused to update and backdate,
it pissed him off.
Okay, very, very good, very good. So, do you mind if you got anything else to say? That's fine, but I think I want to bring in. Maybe I do. I'm not sure who. I've got one other person on here, and I'm not sure if I know who it is. It's from your area, though, I believe.
Is it?
Yeah, would it be one of your friends possibly listening?
Might be.
Okay, I'm going to bring them in. I'm going to bring them in and see if they, uh,
Okay.
let's see here. Actually, this one's been waiting quite a while. Let me bring this one in. It's a 407 area code.
Hello.
407, you're on the air.
Yes, my name's Nathan in Orlando. I'm sitting here listening to this. You know, you need to let your lawyer know. Article 3, Section 1 says this judge needs to be removed for his behavior.
Yes.
Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution. The Constitution is the standard for all the laws and procedures. Article 3, Section 1 says this judge needs to be removed. He can't tell someone to backdate a document that's a legal document. If it's a mistake, the date is a mistake, then there needs to be a document amending that. But you just don't put whiteout on something and then make it look like that's the evidence. He's tampering with evidence.
He is.
Very good.
So I just wanted to point that out, and God bless you, man. I hope everything works out in your favor. But this right here is why America is going down the drain, is because you put a judge on a bench, and he becomes the law. He gets to do whatever he wants.
It becomes his law instead of Georgia law or whatever state you're in.
He's got an authority problem, ma'am. He's got an
Yes,
authority
he does.
problem.
He thinks he's higher than God.
Have more rank than him, and if he doesn't live by the facts, then there's going to be a lot of people suffering, and him more than anything, because his mind becomes a monster when he thinks, because I've got the robe and I've got the position, I get to do whatever I want. He's going to create a lot of victims. He's a dangerous man. Please point this out to your lawyer. This judge, according to Article 3, Section 1, is exalting himself above the Constitution. He needs to be removed.
Thank you so much.
So thank you. I'm going to hang up and keep looking.
Thank
you so much.
Goodbye.
Okay. Now,
wow.
I think that was awesome. That was awesome, I tell you. Now, let me bring in another 706 area code.
Good night, babies. Hello.
I'm here, dear. I'm bringing in 706. Hello, 706 area code. You're on the air. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
I think it's important for Ms.
I know who this is.
You do know who this is. I think it's important for Ms. Baskin to run over a few statistics for other callers that can clearly show
I love y'all.
favoritism with Guardian Ad Litems for particular judges and the effects that it has on the parents and the children.
Oh, well.
Can you help out with that a bit? Or I can get those statistics available if they have recorded those anywhere. But I can tell you that
they're reported.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that we haven't talked about. My children are experiencing, they have lost 10 pounds since they haven't been in my care. They haven't been to the doctor or the dentist in a year. You know, the things that they need, I still get. But the emotional damage that it does is beyond. I mean, it's going to take, when I get my daughter back, she's 13, about to be 14 in July. When I finally get her back, I'm going to have her in counseling. These children, when they get back into the right parents' arms, have to go to counseling. The whole family's going to have to.
So are those available online, young lady?
They are available online at Augusta Chronicle.
Thank you.
Has covered quite a few stories over the past 2 years. Wesley Brown of the Augusta Chronicle has done a tremendous job.
Mm-hmm.
Shed light on the problems that are being covered up every single day in this district. If you are a woman in this district, you have no rights.
I saw Dusty's post.
Stated.
I saw Dusty's post, and he's good. He's good where he replied to the comments.
You mean
Yes.
it's Wesley that actually did the story. He covered in Augusta Chronicle, not the same person that did my story, because that other person, I don't know who that is, Sandy something, didn't even ask me for my opinion on that story, just ran with whatever Roper said.
Do you remember the title, young lady?
If you type in Augusta Chronicle and Guardian Ad Litems,
Okay.
it will be in there. It's embedded in there in several places,
Okay, thank you.
especially in 2014 and 2015.
All righty. There we go. November the 7th, 2015. The Augusta Chronicle. Wesley Brown. Officials say increased public awareness and less contentious legal battles have resulted in Augusta judges assigning far fewer court-appointed guardians this year to divorce and child custody cases in Richmond and Columbia counties. Superior Court records show Guardian Ad Litems and appointments are down nearly 80% in the two counties so far this year. Now that's maybe in effect because they started reporting on it, because he says decreasing from 157 assignments in 2013 and 102 last year to 34 as of the end of October. And I'll put the links.
People are tired of this crap.
Well, they're dealing with.
I think people are running from family court. And I don't blame them. And I hope my story and other stories that have, other people that have stood up and spoke out like this, I hope they have deterred people from going to family court, because you do lose. Somebody's going to lose. And guess who it is? It's the children. When Mr. Hill told me, remember, I won and you lost. I said, no, the only people that lost in this was our children, and that's your problem. Our children lost their doctor, their dentist, their stable home that I've had for them for now 11 years, their schools, their everything. They lost. The children lose. That's who loses in this.
Well, this young lady was going to say something, and she was going.
I think June of 2015 article from Wesley Brown shed a lot of light on the November posting.
All right, thank you.
Augusta Chronicle.
Thank you. I'm going to put that in a Word document. It'll be available online on Facebook at the show, and it'll be available in the YouTube video. The link will be available for that. It'll take me a few hours, young lady, but I appreciate it. You're right. Statistics need to be involved and actual facts. One of the facts that I didn't get to bring up, and it's not about me at all. I promise it's not, but I discovered some things going on here with one of my grandsons. And when I did, I found warrants that they had issued under the Social Security number the government had assigned. And in researching that, I not only found that, I found where there was a property tied into all this, and that property was owned by a county or a city councilman. And the property taxes were paid during that time frame. They were 3 years behind under his ownership of the property. The batch number and the sequence number read like this: batch account number LB0421 sequence 61. Well, that is his biological maternal grandmother's live birth certificate. So that's how I know they're doing it. And the FBI came in and raided our county, or somebody did in the federal level, because I absolutely did my homework. So I do know that they are certainly using birth certificates in the system.
Oh, and then remember, Carol, we found out that they patented when me and Angelina's biological father did a DNA test through the state of Georgia when she was 9 months old. So it was documented that that was her father, and he was liable for child support all these years. They patented our DNA.
Well, there's something that's patentable in your DNA. They've been doing that for a while, but there's some kind of a a combination that is patentable in there, and which there are on many, but I did notice that the two sons, they didn't patent theirs. They didn't make reference to the
No,
patent,
and
but they
that
certainly.
was DNA test that we paid for out of our pocket.
Oh, okay.
He paid for one and I paid for the other, because he didn't believe that my sons were his.
Now, who ordered the one for the children? I mean, for your daughter and her father and you.
The state did when I filed for child support.
The state did. So that was a state.
The state did and the father did.
Okay. And
so the state knew that Gary Hill was not my daughter's biological father. The state did not take his rights. They did not ask him, did he want to relinquish his rights or anything.
Well, let's talk about this a little further. So I'm just going to put a number out there. It doesn't have to be exact, but I'm going to say that the biological father of your daughter, who is not Gary Hale, that's established, and even though they kept referring it to him and gave her to someone who she hadn't had effectively a relationship with at all for many years, because she was ordered through the Guardian Ad Litem, felt it best that she was made to start visiting him again. So they come in and he owes you, let's say, $65,000. So what happens to that support that the biological father seems to owe? Where does that go to? And I'm asking a question for any of the listeners.
It would go to me, but in turn, I've got to pay Mr. Hill. There's two different orders. There's an order put out a day apart. One of them says I do have to pay Gary Hill, and one of them says I don't until 2018. And the one that says I do is newer. So really, I'm supposed to be paying $356 a month to Mr. Hill for all three children. So I'm supposed to pay, and Chris is supposed to pay, but the money that he gives me, I'm supposed to give to Mr. Hill, I guess.
Now I've seen in the document.
It'll be two people paying for one child.
Okay. In this case, there are two sons and a daughter. So I've seen, and I don't buy what they're telling me. I called up and asked them about this. I did. I'm not going to say who I spoke with, but it says there is a support orders out for 3 children. Then separately, there's support orders out for 2 children, and separately, there's support orders out for 1 children. So I'm seeing evidence of this in the documents. This is not the only case. I've heard audio in another case, because like I said, I only looked at 3 because it's so overwhelming to me. I had no idea. I knew a little bit, but I had no idea. This case, this woman had 4 extra children listed in the audio, plus they brought in another case, plus in addition to that, the person making the complaints to, and I'm an older woman, I'm a grandmother now, I'm 54, so back in my day it was called child welfare. So the people that are calling them, the lady was calling the child welfare in 2012. Well, there's a problem with that because the lady who was calling had been dead since 2009. Isn't this something?
What?
Oh, that's just not even the tip of it. There's another one who it appears they re-divorced her right under her very nose. And this was her attorney involved. Yes. And she was already divorced in 2006, folks. So how can you get re-divorced in 2015?
See, that's what I think they did in my case was, I think they married me and Mike a couple more times and divorced us a couple more times.
Well, it looks like there's a double entry going on.
Yeah, by 2 different judges.
Well, if this has been my experience, if I find absolute fraud, and I'm talking about in any case, period, and you try to get the attorney to bring up these indiscretions, the name spelling wrong, the wrong address, they'll be like, oh, no, no, no. Well, why is it a no? If you're hiring someone or they have a fiduciary responsibility to you, one of their license, the reason they're able to use that license is because they're using it due to you, and they're under a license that would be a violation of probably one of the rules under their license. And if you tell them point blank that you want them to do something, they can advise you that that's not a good idea, but they are still required to do as you instruct them to do. So why would they not say, hey, there's backdating here. Hey, it looks like Judge Roper handled our divorce case twice, and guess what? He wasn't even over the divorce with Mike now, was he?
No. Judge Danny Craig signed off on it in 30 days.
And he was never to have heard that case. So why is he listed twice? One is David, one of the entries is David R. Roper, and then one of them's R. David Roper. So not only are they using the names of the children wrong. So let's say there's a daughter named Carol, and Carol is suddenly listed as Carl. Well, that certainly changes the sex of the female, doesn't it?
Yes. Mhm.
So they're doing derivatives off of their paper, and it is their paper. They assigned it to the energy that the young children were, the son or daughter was holding, and really and truly on the hierarchy of things, everything's flipped over, because if that child was conceived, and I do look at it this way, I 100% know it. If I give birth to my daughter's son, they are flesh of my flesh, and that's the truth, because they came right from me, and I am their universe at one point when they were incubating in there. They are flesh of my flesh, in fact.
Yes. So very true.
Well, I'm trying to get folks
If I may interject a moment, the
Sure.
problem with most attorneys, when you're working with Guardian Ad Litems, if you even bring up the fact that you feel your Guardian Ad Litem is working against you, if you find discrepancies with words or documents, you are immediately shut down by your own attorney and threatened to lose your children. And I have literally heard a female attorney in Augusta, Georgia, say to a friend of mine, if you do not shut your mouth and stop bringing this nonsense up, you're going to lose your children, or maybe just one of your children. So where do you go in the system when you are then fighting with your Guardian Ad Litem, the court system, and your own attorney that you're paying to do a job?
One of the places that you can go, but I understand how it is when you have them under retainer or under an obligation, but one of the places you need to document everything, and there are professional rules of conduct for all attorneys. And just bear with me for a moment. Also, there are judicial canons. Judges are attorneys as well. They have a license as well. So you can file complaints against them. And I did a show it was when I was on Two Moms on a Borough, called How to Hold Judges and Attorneys Accountable. So what this does is, usually nothing may not happen, and you may think nothing happened, but and Randy Kelton spoke to this. He's been on many shows. He's an expert in this. What happens is anybody can file a complaint for you as well. So if you have other people that are looking at your records, and other people can file it, and they can file it just under one rule of professional conduct or many, or they can file each separate complaint separately. After a number of times, they have to report that to the insurance agencies of these corrupt officials. That affects their insurance. In addition to filing them with, let's say, the Supreme Court of Georgia, if that's where you file them, or the Judicial Commission of Georgia, you can send them to your county bar association to show that you filed complaints. They will record that information as well, and they will have a record that people are dissatisfied with them. And it's long and tedious, and I understand, I do, that it's very, very, very emotional when you're in the court system, especially when children are involved. In the 80s, I had a similar thing happen. I've told Shannon about it, and I had an attorney, and evidence was switched right before my very eyes. I didn't know about it, but I happened to have the funds available to get it fixed fairly quickly, that I did see it occur. I saw my children sold down the river. So I do understand what it feels like, and it's very, very, and I didn't want to say anything for fear of retaliation by a professional, which is not in line with the rules of professional conduct. And they'll threaten to say you're crazy. They'll tell you you're crazy.
Yep.
They'll tell you need a mental evaluation. But the fact is, the very reason that you hire them is an admission that you're not competent to be in that forum. So that's why the judges aren't hearing anything you're saying. And I hate to say it, there's no shortcut, but I will not have someone represent me. I can present for myself, because that's what it's going to take. It's so corrupt that it's dangerous to even go there, I believe, anymore. And they don't, and they're losing, people are losing faith in the government day by day. 20% of the Americans that were polled, and this was from Congress or the Senate one under the visa waiver, 20% of people now trust the government. That means 80% do not.
Wow. Mind blowing.
Well, it's an issue. This is what's kicking me in the butt. Now, we've got little boys and girls, and a lot of people say, call them your sons and daughters. That's proper. We got children out there that have no defense at all, and they're being sold down the river. And it is, I cannot believe this. I mean, I can believe it.
They can't defend. Who's going to stand up for their children? Just like I said in my news video, this is bigger than Shannon Renee Baskin. I'm standing up for the children that came before me, that are during my children, and after, because I know there's victims after me. And that's the part that breaks my heart. It's not just about me. My heart breaks every day that goes by that I know that there's somebody else in his courtroom losing their children today. All across the board. This is happening all over the United States. And there are some good fathers out there that are losing custody of their children to mothers who just ran off and didn't have nothing to do with their children. So it's not, there are fathers out there that are great too. Let's not excuse that fact. I've got two friends of mine that are male that have lost their children to the mothers that were just, either had a drug record or abandonment, where they abandoned the child for years.
Right. Well, remember, Shannon?
Giving the child back.
Remember, Shannon, remember when you and I first started talking, and you and I got to where we talked quite a bit, and at first you were, and I'm not saying you're not still, because it's clear by the record that he did some things to you, but you're not so much talking about Gary Hill near as much as you are about the corrupt judicial, because you know that in the end he really didn't win anything and the children were hurt. So it is about the fact that they are a third party intervener coming in, probably where they have no business coming in, and it's clear because everything's
Exactly. I almost slipped up and said that to Gary Hill the other day through text message when he was being just downright ugly, saying, well, you're the one who lost your children, and you're a mother and you lost custody of your children. That's not my fault, and blah, 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 blah. And I wrote back to him and I said, well, your wife lost custody of her son. She has the same visitation schedule as I do. So what's that say about your wife? Right. And, he wants to try to, make up excuses for hers. But for me, I lost mine because I'm crazy, or, there's something wrong with me.
Do not let that affect you, male or female, because it's a shaming technique, because let's get to the real problem. Reform needs to be had immediately, and there's no reason that these folks can't, the legislators and the people, the lobbyist groups, there is no reason, if they're aware of this, they can't move immediately to reform and stop this. Emergency stays can't be put in. Fraud upon the court motions can be put in by people in general. And a friend of mine, Valerie, actually did the template for a fraud upon the court that I'll be glad it's in the show, the transcript, the template. And you can file the complaints against the judges and the lawyers. Now, I know that's hard to do when you're going through this, but I'm trying to work on maybe something to where I can help more people. But I'm just learning about it myself. So I had no idea that it was. It's
It was
it's
as big.
almost like, well, it's almost, I was into this. I found fraud in my
It was this
daughter's.
big and this deep.
Right, and it's massive. So I'm looking at getting a group together that can help the mothers and the fathers, and if there's evidence in the court's
Yeah, we
records.
need a support group, because I'll tell you, Carol, we can come up with a name or something and come up with a support group page or whatever. Because I really feel like, speaking from where I'm been sitting in the past, April will be a year I lost my children, and I'll tell you, it's up, down, roller coaster that you're on of emotions, and like my ex wanted to say, well, the next time we're going to go to court, I'm going to request for a mental evaluation on you. And I said, I'm not taking it. Y'all wanted a mental evaluation on somebody. You should have asked for it before you took my children.
When they ask for a mental evaluation or say that, for one thing, I've seen an email. I'm not going to say who it's from, but I have seen an email, and I don't want anybody to say anything about this, please. I'm going to talk about this. I've seen an email where the competency of their client was put into question, and they were going to be made to look like a nut. First of all, the attorney is not qualified to make any kind of a determination. And second of all, when somebody approaches you like that, you just ask that psychologist, psychiatrist, am I legally required to do this? And they know that you are not.
Yep.
And
any parent that loves their children would be emotionally devastated. Especially I lost a child that don't even belong to this person. I was never even married to this man, and he's got custody of a child that don't even belong to him.
Well, what I think the main thing is the way the judge handled it, and the way they continued to call him father. And he's the father, and continued to ignore the fact that you weren't. And I do think that your attorney brought that up. She did bring that up. I saw where she said he is not the father. He's had no relationship.
Never was a father, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
He had no legal standing to have my daughter. And let's just say they did prove me unfit. Let's say that, okay? The state is supposed to ask any of the blood relatives, do they want my daughter? Her biological father's family would have a chance to get my daughter if they wanted her.
Or your mother.
That's like if a person dies. Yeah, or my mother
or
and
your
father.
Yeah.
Or, so that's who they were supposed to ask first, not give her to Gary Hale. He's not a foster parent. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well,
So,
Shannon, what I'd like
it
you to
wouldn't
do,
be-
I'd like to invite some of the other mothers on if they want to, and build we can look at helping you with a page to build up. And what I want to do, because I know the emotions are strong, but what I want to do is work for positive change, and I know it gets emotional. So I would like to have some of them on to speak about this, but not mention any of the names of the sons or daughters, and just if they're in litigation, to get with me so I can look over their stuff, and I can make statements, and then I can ask them specifics if I need to, so that they're not put in the line of fire where they have ongoing litigation. That is that is how I want to do this thing, to be able to help. And behind the scenes, I am working on things, folks, with people who do care, and I am sending things out. So I am trying in my own way to quickly get from point A to point B to get these problems corrected. And I thank you, young lady from the 70706 area code, for coming in, and it was a great idea about the statistics, and I hope I get to meet you in the Facebook forum.
My pleasure. Miss Baskin, I wish you nothing but the best.
Oh, I want to bring up something
Yes.
else. The judge made a very bold statement. He said, Miss Baskin, and I'm ad-libbing, folks. Miss Baskin. That just doesn't roll off my tongue right. I think I'll call you Miss Askin. So I go in and look up the Askin case. It's a criminal case. Why would the judge even make that sort of a statement if there is not a judicial mill going on in his court?
Huh. Wow. Because, see, this is my problem. I don't know where in the heck or how it happened, why it happened, and I don't care. But it needs to be changed. How in the heck do you got judges on the bench, Superior Court judges who are seeing criminals day in and day out, ruling on criminal cases, murderers, rapists, all this crap, and they're seeing family court cases? So, in turn, they're taking that same mentality they have in criminal cases and using them in family court cases, and somebody's going to end up being treated like the criminal, and it's the innocent person that does.
Well, let me tell you, this is
It
what
should
happened.
be a juvenile court.
Right, and they started marrying him.
Should have stayed in the juvenile court. But see, this is the thing. Here in Georgia, we have CASA workers in the juvenile court. CASA workers are free. They don't make money. They're not making the courts money. That's why it got flipped. So the Guardian Ad Litems would make money and bring that money back to the court, like you said. So it's a money-making business.
Yes, it is.
The courts are making money off the backs of our children, and I am fed up with it.
Well, not only that, let's talk about this. I've got the 97 warrants that were under Cameron's, who was then 4, the Social Security number that was issued to him by the Social Security Administration. So that's a fact. That's been verified and actually given to me by an IRS special agent, Kathy Cox, out of Ogden, Utah. She said that they had entered the National Criminal Warrant Database for the IRS up in Wayne County, Michigan. I live in Wayne County, Indiana. I found this system that some of the big players were playing in, and it was verified by the chief of police, who said someone has accessed the system. So let's take a look at this. 47 to 49 of those were felony warrants. What are felony warrants worth in the state of Indiana during the relevant time frame? They're worth to the state players who are bad players that are doing this, the ones that are doing this, because not all of them are. The state collects $100,000 to $400,000 per felony. That's a good reason to use name variations of the original name, isn't it?
Yep.
So you're misasking.
Awful.
Yeah, well, it's part of, and I haven't had a guest on to really speak to this per se. There's an Anthony I'm going to have on, but he's and Ken Dost has touched upon it, and he's into the patents and the system that they're using of patents. But the 1031 exchanges are where the property goes through. And Shannon, remember when I asked you, have you purchased a home or a car lately? Now, a lot of people don't realize that when you purchase a home, that there's fraud going on in the banking industry. And my daughter went in to buy a home and her children's identities were taken. I have a valid reason for asking that because I've seen what can happen in my own family. It's a personal experience that I discovered that's happening. So there's other reasons beside the fact that they've guaranteed a 95% occupancy in the juvenile jails. How can they guarantee that there's going to be enough of a prison? Oh, we need to be able to build a bit better prison if you'll guarantee us 95% of your children.
Wow. That's ludicrous.
Well, that's just how the boat goes round, I guess, until some things can get changed, because certainly when you go into their system and bring these things.
You got to think about it like this. When you're taking children out of the stable environment that they know and love their whole life, and you place them with the person that you know is not good for them, not stable for them or nothing. This guy has moved 10 times in 3 years. I've lived in the same home for almost 11 years now. My kids went to the same schools their whole life, had the same friends. Everything was ripped away from them. When you do that to children that are these ages, my daughter's 13, my son's about to be 11, my other son's about to be 8. These are critical times in their life. I got one going to high school next year, one going to middle school. And you take them from everything they know, you're going to have behavioral problems. You're going to have, emotional problems. You're going to have problems that cost, the children are going to need counseling. They could end up on drugs. They could end up in jail. My daughter could end up pregnant early. These are all things that could happen when you snatch a child up from their environment that they're used to.
Right.
So guess what? They're going right back into the revolving door of the system.
Right.
Either they're going to be in somebody's jail, they're going to be in somebody's rehab, or they're going to be on somebody's welfare system because they had a baby out of wedlock.
Well, let me, and those are good points. We've only got about 2 minutes left.
The very thing that Roper was mad at me for taking my children from me because I had them out of wedlock, you're putting them at risk for doing the same thing.
I don't think that he did it because you had him out of wedlock. He may have indicated that or presumed that, and we've only got a few minutes left. I want to invite you back, Shannon, and I also want to get with you on this page that should help you with that page and help you so you can help others.
That would be great.
Let me say this, and I want to know, where did you get the word stable? Is that a normal word that you use every day, or is that one you learned when you got into this battle that somebody said that they have to prove that it's an unstable home?
I read about it.
Okay.
Prior to going to court.
Okay.
And I read that the stable parent that has the stable home, the stable everything, is better suited for the children. That's in the best interest of the children, and the children should go with that parent or stay with that parent.
Well, let me say this, and then we're going to
That's why I kept the stable home all these years.
Well, right, and let me right. Well, let me tell you how they use the wordsmithing. The stable parent has a stable that the horses are housed in. They're going to put them out to pasture in their world, and that's just a possibility. People need to think about the language that we've been taught. And the legal forum, they're the best wordsmiths in the world. They are the best wordsmiths. They know exactly what's going on with this wordsmithing, and I've seen it many, many times. So it's just something to think about, because I still do it to this day. I'll say things, but I want to thank you so much, ladies, and I'm going to end this by playing my new favorite song, because this is something we're coming, folks, to change this whole thing around, and we cannot be stopped. And I thank you, ladies, very, very much. And Shannon, I'll call you after the show. And thank you, young lady, for coming in. I appreciate your comments.
Most welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. Bye.
You can't stop us, we can't be stopped. I wasn't living, I'm sitting, 8 miles. in Rockland and in first grade, I drank my juice.
90 seconds.
Never looked down, 'cause love had more stains in it. Always been about the heart, never cared who's winning it. Shakes the lie, you can see to my bone like my blood was a bone touch. I had to get my life and relearn the minute that I feel real life. I had to create this power, welcome to the night. Because I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. So hop on board or get out
60
the way.
seconds.
'Cause I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. You can't stop us, we can't be stopped. Feel that smoke rise to the sky, split like a dollar sign. Flip when you hear that beat, rip like a dynamite. Cold like a winter street light, 'cause I wanna be Mike is my weapon, so I spit this artillery. Check the line, you can see from my phone like my blood was a phone top. I had to get my life and relearn the minute that I felt real life. I had to create the power, welcome to the night. Because I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. So
10 seconds.
get out the way, 'cause I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. You can't stop us, we can't be stopped. Go hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Put 'em up, hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hands up in the sky, hands up like you learn to fly. Hop on board or get out the way. Because I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. So hop on board or get out the way. 'Cause I was born this way. I got lightning running through my veins. Ain't nobody gonna stop this train. You can't stop us, we can't be stopped.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.